there again, people, and welcome to yet another episode of Marvelous Monstrosities and Devilish Designs. I basically had something pretty much preset, ready to go, but basically haven't really been able to record or whatnot. I tried doing a little bit of recording last time, but ended up getting interrupted, had a lot of different issues, so here we are again! So, yeah, what are we dealing with this time? We're dealing with a relatively simple modification, actually. Basically, this is a modification made by Kyle R. Hoffman, which tends to make very, very simple modifications, nothing too fancy, but at the same time, he tends to make stuff that you don't generally see elsewhere. He at least usually makes rather unique little features. At least that's the good news. The bad news is that he usually distributes them in DIF files, which means they're rather complicated to set up. They're a bit more of a pain than your normal file would be. Specifically, like, if you use, like, a QCC file, which is very easy to manage or something like that. Basically, I assume the reason for this was because it's a lot smaller in size for 1996. But yeah, in 2020, it is therefore a lot more of a pain. Yeah, it's definitely one of the worst types that you could kind of give me, because that means I have to go in there, change around the code, and there's definitely a lot of room for error. It makes me a lot more nervous if it's me or if it's the modification that's not working. Especially since there was a modification prior to this one, Water Aware Monsters it was called, which did not work at all. I usually like to spend a bit of time trying to examine all the different bits of code, try to make sure that there's no way I can get it working, and trying to understand why it's not working. So I definitely do put in a bit of effort for it to make sure it's not just me. But yeah, it definitely is always a scary thing because, as said, it's not something you could just load up and play and say right away that it was not working to begin with or not. And there's always that room for error, which definitely makes me very nervous. Anyway, that was that one. This one I have gotten working. I believe it was actually pretty working by default. It's a very basic modification, even by his standards, so it's relatively easy to swap all around. Yeah, I don't even recall having to change any of the lines around or anything like that from what they were. I believe it was very, very simple just to place it. Maybe I needed an extra line on one of the impulses or something like that. I'm trying to make sure, but yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head. It has been a couple days, people. But yeah, I don't believe... I believe if there was anything, yeah, it was on the if or else for the impulse. Basically, I think it was backwards from what it was. I think you needed the semicolon in the upper half instead of the lower half of that command line. Because the lower half, it really doesn't make much sense. The upper half, it needs to separate, while the lower half, basically, it's being closed out. So it's basically saying there's another argument that doesn't exist. So he had that a bit backwards, but nothing too major. Especially in terms of Water Aware Monsters and all that terribleness. Anyway, let's load this thing up, see what we're in for. As I said, it's a really basic one. I just haven't really had much time to really do anything at all, so... yeah, I've been having a lot of misfortune when it comes to trying to record and trying to get time to record, so needless to say, it's rather nice that I get the ability to do something today. Well, I'm doing E4M2. I don't know why, but here we are. Here's a good map to do it on. So, as you see, basically what we have now is a set of wings. Basically Red Bull. We have a lot of Red Bull, and in this case, this Red Bull basically will give us the ability to toggle it on and off, which is a bit more controlled than Red Bull would be, using Impulse 32. It could also be bound to a key, obviously. This is, right now, a kinda ugly way of handling it. If he could figure out what gravity currently is, it would work a lot better and be much less ugly. World.gravity would be logical, but he doesn't know if it would work. So, yeah, basically this is just a basic hack slapped together to try and get something going. Let's get back into the game. Of course, this thing has massive delay trying to get back into and out of the game. Lesson learned, do not try and get out of DOSBots while recording in DOSBots. Actually, don't try and get out of DOSBots in general. Yeah, that's one of the many reasons I'm not a big fan of DOSBots, because it's so clunky trying to load into and out of it. But yeah, Impulse 32. That is what he said. So now it's on. It doesn't even give me a validation message. It doesn't tell me anything. Yeah, that's not exactly the most helpful, buddy. I don't like that. But basically, the first thing you'll notice when you turn it on is that it totally prevents your ability to jump. Which is really, really terrible. Yeah. Basically, when you have wings on, for whatever reason, by the rules of ruledom, you can't do that. But we're going to try and go down there and go and drop like you normally would. But as you can see, the big difference is you slowly float. In fact, we probably can land on that secret area. If anything, I can kind of cling, and it's like staying up. Huh, what is it, like an invisible wall or something? I couldn't actually like, get to it. I'm going to reboot because I think I can get to it. I think I just need to go from the far left side. Yeah, I didn't ever realize this an invisible wall. Apparently, I couldn't float right to it, which is weird for me because I figured you could. So it's like I'm floating. I'm floating, people. There we are. Okay, I'm on it. As you see, now I'm on it. And yeah, basically, all Wings does is you float slowly down, and it basically allows you, therefore, to have a lot more aerial control. Note that this area, normally you drop down, you're going to take a couple of injuries. If I do it without Impulse 32 on, I don't even know if Impulse 32 is on or off, I don't think it is. And I drop normally, I took 5 damage. I don't take that 5 damage if I use Impulse 32 because I'm slowly floating down, obviously. It basically is kind of like that zero gravity, I guess you could say, for E1M8. Except that you totally control when you have it and when you don't. A little bit of an interesting feature, if you will. Basically allows you to have some sort of like fallen damage mod, I could assume. Yeah, basically if I want to have fallen damage and that type of annoying thing, this would basically be the counter for it. Basically having some way to easily float down to wherever you needed to get to. Quite nice and well and all. Definitely a good balancer, like I said, for fallen damage. But the one big problem is, one, it's an additional button, which kind of makes it really, really annoying. And two, it's not really that logically explainable or anything like that. It's just a pair of random wings that don't really do anything. It doesn't tell you when it's on or off, which is really annoying. And yeah, it just... overall, it's not really that useful as much as it is rather annoying if you don't have fallen damage. I can imagine people getting annoyed with the fact that they couldn't jump and had to like fight with it to try and figure out which way is actually working or not. I could imagine it being pretty easy to display print messages if I really wanted to, but like I said, at the end of the day, it's not really about the display or any of that. It's more, you'd have to set up fallen damage, you'd have to get all that mechanics working, then you'd have to get this working. One, that's going to require a lot of coding space that could be better used for other things. And two, like I said, it's additional function that basically requires an extra key. And I like the streamlined nature of Quake. I don't want to have to add a bunch of extra keys. If you notice based on my modifications, I don't believe I have any extra keys in use beyond bindings for extra weapons. So, yeah, that's pretty much about it, people. Thank you all for watching as usual. It's been an adventure, and I shall see you all, hopefully, in the future. Take care, people.